called me or us an artivist.
じゃあ結構いろいろお聞きしたいことがあるんですよね。
Yeah, we made a presentation to share some of our projects and our work with you. And yeah, since we just moved our studio, we cannot really show you around in our studio, but we have some pictures in the presentation. Nienke started the studio. That's also why it's still called Studio Nienke Hoogvliet. But Tim joined a few years ago. And my background is at the Willem de Koning Academy in Rotterdam, where I graduated in 2013, and I studied lifestyle and design.
And my background is actually architecture. I studied in Delft, TU Delft, and I graduated 4 years ago now.
This is a quote from the online magazine Trendland from 2015. And they called me or us an artivist, a combination of the word artist and activist.
And we think this is actually a really good description of what we do with the studio.
Because our main goal with all the projects that we do is to try to show new perspectives on certain issues around sustainability. So we will talk about a few different materials today. And we start with seaweed. That's one of the biggest materials that we're working on. As you can see on this picture, there's a lot of seaweed, and that's a problem on some places because there's just too much. But there are also some benefits for seaweed that I will get back to later.
And this abundance is actually also partly caused because of pollution. Because of all the nutrients we dump in the ocean, and the seaweed really loves these nutrients and actually grows harder because of them.
So these are a few of the benefits of using seaweed as a raw material. There's no fresh water needed, and when you think, for example, about cotton, that it needs 8,000 liters for 1 kilo of cotton, this is really a huge advantage. And seaweed and algae produce a lot of oxygen, and a lot of people don't know it, but it actually produces more oxygen than trees. It cleans the ocean from all the surplus of nutrients, and you don't need agricultural ground, so you can still use the agricultural ground for food. Knotted by hand in a discarded fishing net with a yarn that's made from seaweed. So what we did, we wanted to show on one side the pollution of the ocean with the fishing net and all the plastic waste, but at the same time show a solution that comes from the ocean, like this sustainable material that's made from seaweed. After we worked on the yarn, we wanted to see how we can make the whole process circular, so also include dyes from seaweed.
What you can see here is that on the left side you see the type of seaweed, and right next to it you see different types of fabric. And you can see the different types of fabric, different types of pre-treatment cause a different color in the fabric.
So in these objects you see the whole circular process visualized. So the seating of the chair, it's made from seaweed yarn and it's dyed with seaweed. And the leftovers from that process are used to make the paint for the tabletop. And the leftovers from that process are used to make this sort of bioplastic material from seaweed. So why we make these books is to share more the research that we do, because most of the time we do a lot of research and we don't want to just share it in the objects we make, but also let people get a better understanding about it by reading about the projects.
So actually the fish skins are in the Netherlands a waste product. And there are lots of leftover skins. And you can see all these skins are treated as leftovers and actually have a low value. And we were looking what can we do with this. And we started thinking about fish leather and the leather industry. At the moment, the leather industry is quite polluting. There are a lot of chemicals used. One of the most used ones is chromium 5. These chemicals are actually bad for you, so we thought, well, maybe there's another way to make fish leather, and actually there is. Leather has been made for thousands of years. So we looked into old techniques and found a technique to make these fish skins into leather in a natural way.
Then you put the skin into a mixture of oil and egg, and then you need to massage the skin a lot. You need to dry it, but you still need to massage it a lot to make it flexible and make the oil really get into the pores of the skin.
The idea is that you replace the water content with the oil.
And then we made these products with it. We called it Re-See-Me. And this is all made of salmon leather. So this stool, the seating is made of just salmon leather, and fish have a different type of connective tissue that's a lot stronger because it crosses a couple of times than with cow or regular leather. So you can actually sit on this stool, and a lot of people don't believe that, but it's the leather is strong enough, and that's what we wanted to emphasize in this design.
And we made it into furniture and carpets to actually increase the value of a skin instead of seeing it just as waste. So there's a huge gap between values. We show that waste can be really valuable. So this is an example of one of the wastewater treatment plants. And what they can do, they have a special type of bacteria, or they are actually already in the wastewater. And they use them to eat the particles out of the wastewater. And when they're are really fat, you can see this in these 3 steps. They're full of fatty acids. And these fatty acids, they can make a bioplastic out of it. It's called PHA, and it's fully biodegradable. You can compare it to wood in biodegradability.
In the Netherlands, a lot of people get cremated, and the ashes contain a lot of nutrients, but also a lot of toxins. And when the ashes are scattered in a field or a special area, the soil can get polluted because there are too many nutrients and toxins in this relatively small surrounding. By mixing the ashes with the bioplastic, when you put the urn outside in the soil can slowly break down the bioplastic, and therefore also the nutrients and toxins in the ashes will release slowly to the soil. And that prevents ground and water pollution, because then plants have the time to absorb and process all these nutrients and toxins
at their own speed. The surface you see?
Yes, the surface.
It looks like marble, but
Yes.
it's water. And in this exposition, it slowly drifted around and changed.
I
And
see.
that's actually a reference to how the water looks at the wastewater treatment plant. It's also foaming and bubbling and different kind of colors.
Calmera is a new material that's developed by the water authorities, and it's also made by the bacteria that clean the wastewater when it's treated. First, we did some testing to see if the Calmera could be a color like textile dye. But the Calmera, it has a really nice quality that it makes textiles absorb liquid better.
And the colors you see are actually also made from wastewater. One is a red kind of hue, and the other one is more blue type of hue, both made out of wastewater.
We made a kimono because the kimono is such a valuable clothing item that it was given from generation to generation. It was unisex, and it's really the contrast to all the fast fashion clothes that we buy now. This project was a statement about against fast fashion and also to show that we can look even at wastewater as a new source for sustainable dyes and textile materials.
Research into the textile industry, and textiles are colored with chemicals, they're treated with chemicals, and we were wondering what happens with these chemicals. Are they suddenly gone? Are they still in our textiles? We started researching herbs and started dyeing with herbs and to look if we can get color out of them. And actually these herbs are good for you. So when you dye with these herbs, the possibility is there that it transfers to these textiles, and when we wear it on our skin, that we benefit from these positive effects.
So we received 1,000 white t-shirts that were discarded from a textile waste sorting company. And then people could select a white t-shirt and a herbal dye that they thought would be helpful for them. And then we dyed the shirt for them, and they could take it home for free to see if it would benefit their health.
いや、結構いろいろお聞きしたいことがあるんですよね。